The call came at 2:17 in the morning. At first, I thought my wife was in labor. Instead, a nurse asked me a question that made my stomach drop. "Sir, is there a reason your wife has been left alone?" I sat upright in bed. "What do you mean left alone?" There was a pause. Then she said something I'll never forget. "She's 8 months pregnant. She was brought in almost 11 hours ago. Whoever dropped her off disappeared. No visitors. No emergency contact answering. Nobody has come back." I was already reaching for my keys. My wife, Elowen Hart, was many things. Strong, kind, stubborn. But she was also carrying our first child. And now she was lying alone in a hospital bed while her own family had vanished. What I didn't know was that this wasn't an act of neglect. It wasn't an argument gone too far. And it wasn't about family drama. Someone wanted my wife abandoned before she could give birth. Because if our baby arrived alive, a fortune would change hands. If our baby didn't, certain people would inherit everything. And by the time I uncovered the truth, the people responsible would lose far more than money. They would lose the empire they spent decades building. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. My name is Cassian. 3 years ago, I married Elowen Hart. People loved Elowen. She volunteered at food drives, remembered birthdays, helped neighbors without being asked, the kind of person who made everyone around her feel important. Her family, however, was a different story. The Harts were one of the wealthiest families in our state. They owned retirement communities, assisted living facilities, and commercial properties worth tens of millions. To outsiders, they looked perfect. Behind closed doors, they were a nest of secrets. The most powerful person in the family wasn't Elowen's mother. It wasn't her older brother, Torin. It was the family attorney, a man named Calder Vane. For nearly 30 years, Calder had handled every trust, every inheritance, and every legal matter connected to the Hart fortune. People trusted him more than family, including me. That would turn out to be a mistake. 2 months before Elowen was due, something strange happened. Her grandfather, Aldrich Hart, passed away. He was 92, a stubborn old man with a sharp mind and very little patience for dishonesty. The funeral was quiet, respectful, predictable, at least until the reading of the will. That's when everything changed. The attorney announced that a sealed amendment existed, one nobody knew about, not even the family. The room went silent. Calder looked nervous. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine fear flash across his face. The amendment contained one sentence that changed everything. The majority controlling interest in the Hart family empire would pass to Aldrich's first living great-grandchild. The room exploded. Torin nearly stood up. His mother, Vivian, looked like she had seen a ghost. And Elowen sat frozen beside me. Because she was pregnant, which meant our unborn child had suddenly become the most important person in the entire family. That was when things started getting strange. At first, it was subtle. Missed appointments, anonymous messages, unexpected financial audits. Then came the pressure. Torin repeatedly asked Elowen to sign documents she wasn't allowed to take home. Vivian insisted she reduce her involvement in family affairs. Calder kept calling, always polite, always smiling, always asking questions about the pregnancy. Questions that suddenly felt inappropriate. Was the baby healthy? Any complications? Had we selected a hospital? When was the due date? At the time, I thought he was making conversation. Looking back, he was gathering information. The first real warning came 3 weeks later. Elowen found something inside her grandfather's study. A hidden ledger. Old handwritten notes. Names. Dates. Transactions. The deeper she looked, the more disturbing it became. Her grandfather had spent years documenting missing money. Millions of dollars. Money disappearing through trusts and shell companies. And one name appeared over and over again. Calder Vane, the trusted attorney, the family's closest advisor, the man everyone believed was protecting their interests. Elowen copied everything. Every page. Every note. Every accusation. She intended to investigate quietly. Unfortunately, someone found out. 1 week before the hospital incident, Vivian called Elowen crying. She claimed she was having severe chest pain. Elowen rushed over immediately. Hours later, she called me. Something was wrong. I could hear it in her voice. She said the entire family was there. Torin, Vivian, Calder, all waiting. What was supposed to be concern had become a confrontation. Someone had discovered the copies. Someone knew she had evidence. And they wanted it back. That was the last normal conversation I had with my wife. The next morning, the hospital called. When I arrived, Elowen looked exhausted, terrified, and angrier than I had ever seen her. She told me everything. The family meeting wasn't about reconciliation. It was about control. They demanded the documents. She refused. The argument became vicious. Then she started experiencing severe complications. Instead of staying with her, they drove her to the hospital, signed her in, and left. No support, no family, no concern, just disappeared. But before leaving, Calder said something that haunted her. He looked directly at her and smiled. Then he said, "You should focus on surviving childbirth. Leave the future to people who understand it." At the time, it sounded arrogant. Later, we realized it was a threat, because Calder already knew something we didn't. And once we discovered what it was, everything changed. 2 days after our daughter was born healthy, a second bombshell arrived. A retired banker contacted us anonymously. He had seen unusual trust activity connected to the heart estate. According to records, if Aldrich's first great-grandchild was not born alive, control of the empire reverted to a special trust. A trust secretly managed by one person, Calder Vane. The room went silent. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Elowen whispered the question we were both thinking. What if this was never about me? That was the moment the truth hit us. She had never been the target. Our daughter had. And suddenly, every strange conversation, every question, every act of pressure, made horrifying sense. Someone wasn't trying to silence a witness. Someone was trying to stop an heir. And the person behind it had been standing beside the family for decades, pretending to protect them. For days, neither of us could think about anything else. The realization was sickening. While Elowen had been fighting to protect evidence of financial wrongdoing, someone else had been focused on something far darker. The birth of our daughter. The more we investigated, the more terrifying the truth became. Calder Vane wasn't simply a greedy attorney. He was a patient predator. For nearly 3 decades, he had quietly positioned himself at the center of every major Hart family decision. Every trust, every inheritance, every property transfer, every legal dispute. And nobody questioned it because he never appeared to benefit. At least, not openly. Then we discovered something that changed everything. Buried inside old corporate records were 7 companies connected to Hart family assets. On paper, the companies belonged to different investors. In reality, they all led back to the same hidden trust. A trust controlled by Calder. The missing millions from Aldrich's ledger had not vanished. They had been moved. Slowly. Carefully. Over years. The amount exceeded $40 million. $40 million. And if our daughter had never been born alive, Calder would have gained control over assets worth hundreds of millions more. Suddenly the motive was crystal clear. The inheritance wasn't a surprise obstacle. It was a threat to a plan decades in the making. Then came the next twist. One night Elowen received an unexpected package. No return address. Inside was a flash drive. And a note. 3 words. He kept copies. Nothing else. We plugged it into an old laptop. What we found left us speechless. Audio recordings. Hundreds of them. Meeting after meeting. Conversation after conversation. Years of private discussions. Calder had secretly recorded everyone. Business partners. Family members. Even himself. Insurance. Leverage. Protection. The man trusted by everyone trusted no one. And now his own paranoia was about to destroy him. For 3 days, we listened. Most recordings were routine. Then we found one. A recording made 8 months before Aldrich died. The voices were unmistakable. Calder, Vivian, Torin, And Aldrich himself. The old man sounded furious. What you're doing is theft. Calder remained calm. You're confused. I'm not confused. Aldrich slammed something on a table. If anything happens to my great-grandchild, I want every document investigated. The room went silent. Then Calder spoke. The coldness in his voice made my skin crawl. Let's hope nothing unfortunate happens. The recording ended. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. That single sentence changed everything, because it proved something investigators would later confirm. Aldrich knew. Not every detail, but enough. Enough to fear what might happen after his death. Enough to alter his will. Enough to leave safeguards behind. The question was simple. How do we expose someone like Calder? The answer arrived unexpectedly. 6 weeks later, the Hart Foundation announced a massive public celebration. Media, investors, business leaders, politicians. Everyone would attend. Officially, the event honored Aldrich's legacy. Unofficially, it was intended to reassure stakeholders after rumors began spreading. Calder would be there. So would Torin. So would Vivian. Every major figure connected to the empire. It was the perfect stage. The night of the event arrived. Elowen wore a simple navy dress. Our daughter stayed home with trusted friends. And for the first time in months, I felt calm. Because Calder thought he had already won. He had no idea the trap was waiting for him. Halfway through the evening, Torin stepped onto the stage. He began talking about family values, legacy, responsibility. Everything sounded polished, rehearsed. Then every screen in the ballroom suddenly went black. People looked around, confused. A few seconds later, a voice echoed through the room. Calder's voice, crystal clear. The first recording played, then another, and another, each one worse than the last. Conversations about hidden accounts, fake trusts, missing funds, manipulated legal filings. Then came the recording, the one that destroyed everything. Calder speaking privately with Vivian. If the child isn't born alive, control returns exactly where it belongs. Vivian sounded nervous. What if someone asks questions? Calder laughed. Questions don't matter if there's no air. The ballroom froze. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The silence was deafening. Then the final recording began. Aldrich's voice. Weak but determined. If you're hearing this, it means I was right about you. The room collectively held its breath. Aldrich continued. Calder Vane should never control this family. If my descendants discover evidence of interference involving my first great-grandchild, I authorize complete dissolution of all trusts connected to him. Gasps filled the room, because nobody knew what came next, not even Calder. A video appeared on the screen. A pre-recorded statement from Aldrich, recorded just weeks before his death. He looked directly into the camera. If Calder Vane attempts to gain control through deception, every asset connected to the special trust shall be forfeited. People stared. Some stood. Others pulled out phones. Calder looked like a man watching his world collapse in real time. Then the final sentence arrived. The forfeited assets shall be transferred to a charitable foundation established in the name of my first great-grandchild. The room erupted. Reporters rushed forward. Investors began leaving. Board members started making calls. Security approached Calder. And for the first time in 30 years, he had nowhere to hide. But there was still one final twist. The biggest twist of all. Weeks later, investigators completed their review. What they discovered shocked everyone. Vivian and Torin had never known the full plan. Yes, they were guilty. Yes, they had participated. But Calder had manipulated them for years. False reports. False legal advice. False documents. He had slowly convinced them certain actions were necessary. Necessary to protect the family. Necessary to preserve wealth. Necessary to maintain control. In reality, they were being used. The true architect had been Calder from the beginning. The respected attorney. The trusted advisor. The man nobody suspected. The fallout was devastating. Calder lost his law license. His assets. His reputation. His freedom. The special trust collapsed. Properties were liquidated. Accounts frozen. Everything he spent decades building vanished, exactly as Aldrich intended. And the greatest irony? The wealth Calder tried to steal ended up funding opportunities for the very child he wanted removed from the equation. 1 year later, Elowen and I returned to the hospital. The same hospital where she had once been abandoned. The same hallways. The same entrance. The same nurses. Only this time, everything was different. Our daughter, Aurelia, was laughing in her stroller. Healthy. Happy. Full of life. One of the nurses recognized us immediately. She smiled and hugged Elowen. Then she told us something we never expected. The foundation created in Aurelia's name had just funded a new assistance program for pregnant women facing medical emergencies without family support. For a moment, nobody spoke, because the meaning was impossible to ignore. The place where betrayal happened had become a place where hope was created. The people who abandoned Elowen wanted power. Instead, they lost everything. The people who tried to erase an heir created a legacy in her name. And the little girl they viewed as an obstacle became the reason their entire empire slipped through their fingers. As we walked toward the exit, Elowen looked down at Aurelia and smiled. Then she said something I'll never forget. They thought she was the weakest person in the room.
She paused.
They were wrong. And that's where this unbelievable chapter finally came to an end. What would you have done if you discovered your own family was willing to sacrifice everything for money? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story of betrayal, shocking twists, and ultimate revenge, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.